I bought my first airplane when I was 15 years old in 1977, a 1942 Taylorcraft DC-065 for just $3,500 with $1,000 of my own money and $2,500 on loan from mom and dad. Sold it on my 16th birthday, got my license at 17. Somewhere along there on either a birthday or Christmas, mom and dad got me this poster, famous aviation poster, which I hung in my bedroom. And this poster still rings true today more than ever, especially as we unpeel the layers of what's going on between Boeing and Spirit Aerospace and the story of the 737 MAX. Let's check it out. It's been over a week since the door blew off of Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 out of Portland on its way to Ontario, California, and we still have yet to get a solid airworthiness directive from the FAA as to what exactly to do to check these doors for further operation. Instead, it sounds like the FAA is doing a general audit of Boeing aircraft and Spirit Aerospace. What still stands at this time is AD 2024-0251, which basically grounds the affected fleet of Boeing 737 MAX-9 aircraft that have this plug-type door. On January 11th, Boeing sent out the following statement. FAA formally notified Boeing that it is conducting an investigation to determine if Boeing failed to ensure completed products conformed to its approved design and were in a condition for safe operation in compliance with FAA regulations. This is reaching far beyond simply the bolts in the door plug assembly of the 737 MAX line of aircraft. This statement from the FAA dated on 12 January outlines the plan. After reviewing Boeing's proposed inspection and maintenance instructions, the FAA determined it needed additional data before approving them. Accordingly, the FAA is requiring plug door inspections of 40 aircraft. The FAA is encouraged by the exhaustive nature of Boeing's instructions for inspections and maintenance. However, in the interest of maintaining the highest standard of safety, the agency will not approve the inspection and maintenance process until it reviews the data from the initial rounds of 40 inspections. So they've got to inspect the aircraft, then the FAA is going to review what they found on those inspections. Upon a full review of the data, the FAA will then make a determination whether the instructions from Boeing satisfy compliance with the highest standard of safety. If the FAA approves Boeing's inspection and maintenance instructions, operators will be required to perform that regime on every aircraft before they are returned to service. The FAA is also increasing the oversight of Boeing production and manufacturing. We'll take a look at that letter. And they have launched an investigation to determine if Boeing has failed to ensure completed products conform to its approved design that were in a condition for safe operation and in compliance with FAA regulations. Let's take a look at that letter. Here's the letter about the increased oversight of Boeing production and manufacturing. The FAA will be conducting an audit involving the Boeing 737 MAX production line and its suppliers, that means Spirit Aerospace out of Wichita primarily, to evaluate Boeing's compliance with its approved quality procedures. The results of the FAA's audit analysis will determine whether additional audits are necessary. FAA is going to increase the monitoring of the Boeing 737-9 MAX in-service events, and the FAA is going to make an assessment of safety risks around the delegated authority and quality oversight and examination of options to move these functions under an independent third-party entity. The safety of the flying public, not speed, will determine the timeline for returning the 737-9 MAX to service. These aircraft can be grounded for a very long time. The FAA sets out very stringent regulatory requirements as to the manufacture of these transportation aircraft. And the FAA sent a letter to Ms. Carol Murray, Vice President, Total Quality, Boeing Commercial Airplanes, a letter of possible non-compliance with the FARs, the Federal Aviation Regulations. So the FAA quotes the title and verse of the regulation that they believe has been violated or not complied with, and then they came up with this plan for Boeing. The above described circumstances indicate that Boeing may have failed to ensure its completed products conform to its approved design and were in a condition for safe operation in accordance with the quality system inspection and test procedures. Specifically, i.e., where's the bolts and what about those loose bolts? And a host of other issues on the 737 MAX line of aircraft. This letter is to inform you that the FAA is investigating this matter. We would appreciate receiving any evidence or statements you might care to make concerning this matter within 10 business days of the receipt of this letter. Any discussions or written statements will be given consideration in the final conclusion of the FAA, investigation. However, if we do not hear from you within the specified time, our report will be processed without the benefit of your statement. Your response should contain the root cause of the encountered conditions, the products and articles affected, service impacts, the extent of any immediate long-term action taken to correct and preclude its recurrence, and any mitigating circumstances which you believe may be relevant to the case. That's a lot to do in 10 days, because this onion has many layers. This letter from the FAA was directed directly to Carol Murray, the chair of the Quality Operations Council, Vice President Total Quality at Boeing Commercial Airplanes. She's been at Boeing for 20 years, starting out as an intern in 2004. Murray is responsible for supporting the relationship between Boeing and the FAA and for ensuring continuous improvements in the company's quality management system and driving its integration with the Boeing safety management system. Looks like before the 737, she was on the 787 program, and before that, looks like flight controls and a second internship with the C-17 back in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, the buck stops with Carol Murray and Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun. However, Spirit Aerospace in Wichita, Kansas, is where these products, specifically the Boeing 737 fuselage and these plug doors in question, originate from. By the way, I was corrected. These products are built in Wichita, shipped by rail to Boeing. The plug doors are left inside the fuselage. They are not removed at Boeing to install interior. They apparently use the other operational doors, but not the plug doors at Boeing. Nevertheless, that all needs to be inspected before leaving the factory at Boeing before continuing on to the customer, as was the case with Alaska Airlines Flight 1282. That aircraft was delivered to them just back last October. Also, as part of the investigation, this Google Earth photo needs to be verified and determined what is the process for getting the Wi-Fi installed on these aircraft when they're brand new. This photograph seems to indicate that a subsidiary of Spirit Aerospace installs the Wi-Fi, which is a big box mounted on top of the fuselage here, and it looks like they do use the plug doors to access the aircraft to install the Wi-Fi. Nevertheless, whoever opens and closes those doors, Boeing needs to make the final inspection on those doors to make sure that they are correctly buttoned up before they go out to the new owner, as viewed from another angle. And it looks like these windows are taped up in an effort to try to keep the cabin area cool while they're working on the inside of the airplane. There might be some air conditioning units pumping some cool air in there as well. It gets hot working inside these aircraft on the ramp. If we take a quick look at Boeing's 2022 annual report to shareholders, we can see that the last time Boeing made money, it looks like, was back in 2018 when they turned a profit of $11,987. And since the rollout of the MAX and all the disasters with the MAX, Boeing has been losing money all the way up to this year. But Boeing has a huge backlog of orders of 737 MAX aircraft, and that's what's going to put Boeing back in the green again. They've got still a backlog of over 4,000 of these aircraft to build, a value of somewhere north of $404 million. So they need to get production ramped up quickly and get these aircraft out the door to return to profitability. And in these annual reports, Boeing reports each year on our financial performance and company priorities, our employee demographics and progress towards achieving equity, diversity, and inclusion commitments, our sustainability-focused environmental, social, and governance performance, and our community investments and advocacy, as well as our industry-leading aerospace market outlooks. And despite the years of losses, it looks like executive compensation is still going strong. In order to better peel back the layers of what's going on at Spirit Aerospace, the supplier of the Boeing 737 MAX fuselages to Boeing, it might be easiest to look at this class action lawsuit filed against Spirit Aerospace back in December of 23. Now, to be fair, this case has yet to be adjudicated. These are only allegations at this point. This lawsuit was filed on behalf of two, I believe, former employees at Spirit Aerospace and all the stockholders, all the folks that own stock in Spirit Aerospace between April 2020 and September 2023. Remember, Spirit Aerospace was created as a spin-off from Boeing back in 2005. Boeing and Spirit entered into a long-term agreement that Spirit would be a long-term supplier of the 737, 747, 767, and 777, and 787 aircraft programs. So it's going to be Spirit Aerospace that fills this back order of 4,000 737 fuselages to Boeing aircraft. But then Spirit and Boeing was hit with two major events. Of course, the loss of the 737 MAX-8 aircraft in the two fatal accidents due to the flawed design of the MCAS system, covered in great detail on this channel in previous videos. And then, before they could unground those aircraft, COVID hit, halting production altogether. This resulted in Spirit laying off over 8,500 employees, or half of their U.S. workforce. In 2019, the FAA proposed a $3.9 million civil penalty against Spirit Aerospace regarding the leading-edge slat tracks on the 737 NG. The FAA alleged that Spirit was informed on or about August 3rd that a batch of slat tracks had failed a quality test indicating the presence of a hydrogen embrittlement. According to the FAA, Spirit informed Boeing of the situation on or about September 11th of 2018 and subsequently proposed that Boeing accept the parts as delivered. On October 9th, 2018, Boeing rejected that proposal and instructed Spirit to submit a notice of escapement. And that's what we're dealing with today. Quality escapement, or errors that are escaping the original factory that are not caught on inspection. Spirit filed that notice on February 14th of 2019. Same type of quality escapement problem that we're having today with these door plugs. The next big issue involves the aft pressure bulkhead. The aft pressure bulkhead is the plug that plugs the rear of the tube of the fuselage against the pressurization of the aircraft. The lawsuit goes on to explain how a former employee, Joshua Dean, with 20 years experience, and he worked for Spirit for about 1.5 years as a liaison engineer before COVID. Then he was laid off. Then after COVID, came back and became the product and process verification core quality auditor. And then, according to the lawsuit, was wrongfully terminated by Spirit on April 26 of 2023. The lawsuit explains how Dean discovered misdrilled holes in the pressure bulkhead where the pressure bulkhead attaches to the fuselage, and in the process of taking that back apart again, apparently they also uncovered problems with the tail fitting brackets or assemblies, cracks in the tail fittings. All of this was brought to the attention of Spirit Aerospace. Dean was given a very limited amount of time in which to write up his reports to report all these problems. It goes on and on, but eventually Dean is sacked by Spirit Aerospace. In his testimony here, Dean brings up a point that's affecting industry all across the United States and the world today. Paragraph 57, Dean noticed a significant deterioration in Spirit's workforce after the mass layoffs that Spirit carried out during the COVID pandemic. Dean states that Spirit laid off or voluntarily retired a large number of senior engineers and mechanics, leaving a disproportionate number of new and less experienced, i.e. cheaper, personnel. Dean estimates that whereas previously had about 80% experienced mechanics and 20% inexperienced, those numbers are now approximately 60% and 40% respectively, meaning 60% experienced and 40% inexperienced. Dean states Spirit had similar problems with inexperienced quality auditors and inspectors. Dean believes this lack of experienced personnel negatively impacted the quality of Spirit's work, resulting in more rework and repairs that had to be performed. Paragraph 58, according to Dean, based on his experiences working for the company, Spirit has a culture of not wanting to look for or to find problems, which has led to poor decisions about quality and manufacturing issues. And you'll see this throughout this lawsuit from several of the employees. According to Dean, Spirit did not in fact materially decrease the amounts of defects in the products as required by Boeing, but simply undercounted or manipulated the documentation of the defects to create the appearance of quality improvement. So a disgruntled former employee, or is this factually what's going on at Spirit? And there are more employees testifying to the same effects at Spirit. The next bit of testimony comes from FE1, or former employee number 1, who worked at Spirit for about 12 years and for approximately 8 months worked as a quality manager. And quality managers are not lasting very long at Spirit. For the majority of his time at Spirit, FE1 was an inspector. FE1 served as a team lead for the group of inspectors where he saw the process at the end of the line, also known as the rail pit, which I assume is where the final inspections before the product gets shipped to Renton, Washington via rail car. Former employee 1, or FE1, recalled that beginning in about 2018, Boeing had placed Spirit on probation due to the large number of escaped quality found in the fuselages that Spirit shipped to Boeing. Such escapements included commonly recurring issues, and we've heard about this in the news: FOD, or foreign object damage, missing fasteners, imagine that, peeling paint, and poor skin quality. These issues slowed down Boeing's production process as it had to spend time identifying and fixing the defects created by Spirit. Correction, FOD, or foreign object debris, the stuff left behind during manufacturing that's supposed to be vacuumed up. FE1 struggled with Spirit's culture, which placed an emphasis on pushing out the product over quality. When FE1 identified a defect, he would often receive pushback from production personnel and first-level managers. According to former employee 1, there was significant friction between Spirit's quality inspectors and the production department. Production frequently failed to check for and fix their own mistakes as required, so when the quality department conducted inspections, they found many defects. The numerous defects found during inspections complicated the quality inspector's task and took a considerable amount of time to document, creating additional time pressures and friction within the production teams. Production managers frequently pressured quality inspectors to simply approve the work even if it contained defects. If FE1 or other quality personnel refused to approve defective work, production managers would complain to the quality inspector's respective manager, who would in turn assign other quality personnel to approve the defective work. In former 1 employee's experience, Spirit employees often rushed work and ignored defects to try to save the company money. FE1 recalled instances in which he was told that a fuselage had to be shipped to the customer the same day, no matter what. Due to its rushed production processes, Spirit's products frequently contained defects. FE1 informed Spirit coworkers that he believed it was just a matter of time until a major defect escaped to a customer. Well, now we got it with these doors, with the missing bolts on the doors. So this is just one of many examples in this testimony here that is eventually going to go, or it's being requested that it go to a jury trial. Finally, here in October of last year, Gentile, the CEO of Spirit Aerospace, left the company on 1 October with an agreement that paid Gentile a cash severance equal to his $1.3 million base salary, which he's had for the last couple of years, and an additional $2,500 per hour for his consulting services. Spirit also required Gentile to agree not to make disparaging statements about Spirit, its employees, products, or services. A month later, the head of Spirit's commercial division, Sam Marnick, leaves the company, signs a non-disparagement agreement in exchange for over $1 million in compensation. Here's a breakdown of the CEO's salary for 2021-22, base salary $1.3 million, cash incentive awards for each year, and long-term incentive awards for each year topping over $7 million. For a total compensation of about $10 to $11 million per year. Meanwhile, the average employee of the Spirit Aerospace was about $64,171. So there's a very strong incentive by the CEOs to keep the production line moving at all costs. So all of this will need to be decided by a jury of our peers. Were these disgruntled workers, or was this actually what was going on at Spirit Aerospace? But it certainly goes a long way to explaining why the FAA is cracking down on Boeing and Spirit Aerospace as a result of this lost door plug last Friday. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.